Found again, co-starring with Lynn Redgrave in the contemporary comedy Sweet Sue, which is playing at the Wilbur Theater in its pre-Broadway engagement through December 21st. And it is such a delight for us to welcome Mary Tyler Moore to our studios. Mary, really a pleasure to meet you.
Good to be here.
You seem to love to work.
I do, sure. Don't you?
Yeah, I do love to work, but is it almost therapeutic for you?
Sure it is. I think it is for everybody, don't you? I think to be able to express yourself, to do what you do well, as much as you want to, sure.
Is comedy which is better, comedy or drama for you?
Better, I don't know. Harder, more difficult, I think, is comedy, and I think most performers and directors will agree to that.
When you picked up the script for Sweet Sue, you thought it was a drama, and yet it has wonderful moments of laughter.
It's a very interesting thing, the way A.R. Gurney writes, in that when you read it on the page, it comes across basically as wonderful, riveting drama. Then you get up and you put your stamp on it, and it becomes comedy as well. It's wonderful stuff, and I'm not crediting myself. I mean, this just happens. He has obviously laid it out in such a way that he wants the actor's input, and it just becomes a recognizable exaggeration of truth.
It's such an interesting twist. Two women and two men playing the same character.
That's right.
Susan 1, Susan 2, and Jake 1 and Jake 2.
Jake 2, yes, and as Gurney puts it, this is not a case of ego and alter ego. In other words, I don't play the good Susan and Lynn play the evil, conniving one. It's not that at all. We are, each of us, the complete character of Sue. But they are two different aspects, just as Picasso painted in the same painting two aspects of the one woman.
Yeah.
That's what Gurney has done with these characters in the play.
Lynn Redgrave seems to me to be a very centered and compassionate lady. Is it, I shouldn't put words in your mouth, but I feel that way. Is it fun to work with her?
It is wonderful to work with her. It's not only fun, but it is safe and it is secure because I can rely on her. I know she cares about me and she will be there to support me as I need her in a scene. I just feel safe and supported as I do with a few close friends.
It must be very important when you're working to feel safe, to feel that the
person is...
It is,
but it's rare. You know, most of the time you're out there basically on your own, and only to a small degree can you rely on your fellow performer. It has happened to me quite often in my work that I've been surrounded by friends. So I'm lucky once again.
It's interesting in this plot. This is a New York suburban artist divorced woman who really kind of falls in love with this very, very young boy.
Her son's best friend, her son's college roommate. She is an illustrator. She is basically an artist who has so followed the rules and regulations of life that she never was able to freely give of herself until she meets this kid and goes through the mating dance of infatuation over a summer, which eventually helps her to find herself, to free herself. And he also makes some changes in his life.
Any parallel? I mean, Robert Levine, your husband, is not a kid, but
no.
There is a 15-year age difference. How about you with rules and regulations?
Well, I had a few to break in formalizing our relationship, but I firmly believe that age, within reason, does not make that much of a difference. And we're talking about, you know, a 15-year difference as opposed to a 22, 23, 24-year difference in the play. I feel that the person and the backgrounds and the similarity of approach to living is what's important, not the chronological age.
Talk about how you met him, because I think it's kind of a heartwarming story.
Well, it is. My mother and father and I had been to Europe, and we were returning to New York, and my mother was very ill with a bronchial infection, and I called my doctor, who was not in. They said, there is a Dr. Levine covering, would you like to talk to him? And I grabbed the phone, yes, please. And he said, based on your mother's history, I think it would be wise for her to come into the hospital and let me examine her. So we did, and I walked in, and there was this thoroughly gorgeous cardiologist, I mean, just a dream from childhood, who turned out also to have a sense of humor and to be sensitive and sweet and caring. And he visited her in my apartment a couple of times, and then finally pronounced her well enough to go home. And as soon as she did, I was on the phone and said, "Hi, it is me. Shall I take you up on that offer to call if there's an emergency?"
Oh. And that's how it started.
That was my
huh?
emergency, yeah.
It's interesting, though, because I read that while you were single and after this move to New York, which was a bit traumatic, here you are single, alone, and having to find yourself all over again, you said no marriage because marriage represents really needing.
Yes.
And yet when you find someone and it clicks, that's it.
Yeah. Well, you know, the interesting thing is I think part of what's interesting about that is that when I connected with Robert and admitted that I did need him, it was an entirely different kind of need. This was a man who was younger than I am, who was not going to be a father figure in any sense, who was going to allow me to make as many decisions in our union as he did. So I had found myself. I had grown up. I had been able to stand on my own 2 feet and say, these are the areas in which I have strong feelings. And if you can allow that, if you can live with that, then let's do that together.
Sounds really romantic. You've bought a farm. Is it a farm?
Yeah, oh, it's a small farm. It's not a big working farm, but yes, and we got a couple of horses the other day, and our golden retriever is probably going to have a wife now, and I don't know, can goats and ducks be far behind?
But I was reading how you used to just dash up there on the weekends with a couple of bowls and a bottle of wine and just, or whatever.
Yeah, well, because it's being reconstructed, the whole place, so we have just a couple of sleeping bags, and we're sort of camping out while the workmen are doing their thing.
Yeah, I think that's great. When you talk about feeling safe when you're working, back to the days of the Dick Van Dyke Show, was it tough to walk in with this bevy of incredible comics and find your placement?
Oh, yeah. That was a real baptismal by fire, but they made it easy. They made it my college of comedy. You know, Carl Reiner was the professor. Who allowed me to grow and who fed me more and more as he felt I was ready to handle it. So it was a protected environment in which I could grow and I could observe. I could be the recipient of Dick Van Dyke's generosity. He was never threatened by me or anybody, and therefore allowed me to have my moments. It was a great experience.
It was really important for you to portray Laura as true.
Yeah, I felt and still do that no matter what's going on in my work, whether it's a comedy or a drama, if I play honestly the moment, I'm safe. You know, and by safe, I don't mean I'm not going to take chances, but I mean I'm right, I'm on the mark. Because if I don't get a laugh, it's probably because they're paying such attention to the character and her relationship with the other characters that it was meant to be that way.
Was the same true of the Mary Tyler Moore Show?
Sure.
And how much freedom did you have in that show? It seems like you might have had a lot.
Oh, yeah, but my nature is one in which I am happiest working in concert with others. And if people whose opinions I respect say, trust us on this, it may not feel comfortable to you right now, but it is good, I will rely on them. So I have autonomy, but I hardly ever use it. I prefer to surround myself with strength and rely on them.
That's an interesting thing. Have you always been that way?
Yeah, pretty much.
Where do you think it comes from? I mean, this knowledge of surrounding yourself with strong people and those you trust.
I don't know, but I got smart and lucky at the same time.
Your parents, you mentioned taking them to Europe. You took your mom and dad for a visit with, was it Pope John Paul II?
Yes, that's right.
Oh, they must have been thrilled.
It was. It was a very, very meaningful moment for them as well as for me. This is a very impressive man. And of course, his station in life is one that doesn't need any commenting on. He is a very moving individual, and when he looks at you and looks into your eyes, you are convinced he is seeing your soul, and he probably is. But it was a wonderful experience.
And you're very close to your mom and dad, aren't you?
Yes, oh yeah.
Have you always been?
Oh, sure. I mean, I went through my periods of alienation with them, as I think most teenagers do. And with it all, we came closer together. We understood each other and had respect for the differences that we all possess.
Yeah, isn't it great, though, to have that kind of relationship?
I think so.
It can't be easy to do all these performances every week and then get up early. Do you resist doing this kind of thing, this interviewing situation?
Well, I don't do a lot of it, so consider yourself very lucky. No, I mean, I get up early anyway, you know. I'm so energized by this play. I go to bed early. I take good care of myself.
Yeah, and you work out.
Yes, I do. I try to take a ballet class every day when I'm in New York. While I'm here, it's been a little bit more difficult, but I'm managing to get some sturdy walking in and a little bit of aerobics, and I'm going to start ballet next week.
You began as Hot Point Honey, is that?
No, Happy Hot Point.
Happy Hot Point.
It was, how could you forget? I was the signature, the logo for Hot Point Appliances on the Ozzie and Harriet show. And that was my very first professional job, which I started the day after graduating from high school.
And then things really happened quickly for you, or did
Well, no, then I spent a year or two as a chorus dancer on television shows. Then things started to happen when I stopped dancing, and I said to myself, this is not going to lead to starring in musicals. There aren't going to be any more Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers movies, so forget it and think about something else. And I turned to acting. But as a result, I will go to my grave thinking of myself as a failed dancer and not a successful actress, you know.
Really?
To a degree, yeah, sure.
Why aren't you dancing now? Well, you do a little bit of ballroom in Sweet Sue.
Tiny, tiny bit, but yes, and a tiny, tiny bit of singing, so I guess I can say that I am in a musical on Broadway, maybe.
You know, it's interesting that I read that Robert Redford, when he watched you a lot, and all of your mannerisms before Ordinary People, looking for the darker side of Mary Tyler Moore.
Well, actually, that's two stories. He was looking for the darker side. He recognized a kindred spirit because Bob, that's what I call him,
Lucky you.
has a kind of upbeat demeanor about him, and yet he's a worrier and a fretter, and he does think dark thoughts, and he recognized a sister in me. But the mannerisms thing was something else. He was very careful when I did Ordinary People to make sure that none of my mannerisms, which are now so instinctive with me, came through, because he did not want this to be Mary Richards Goes to Chicago. He wanted it to be an entirely different character, as it did turn out to be. So he watched me. He didn't let me do any of those things, whatever. I mean, I can't think what they are now, but...
It was so interesting to go from such a sweetheart as Mary Richards Laura Petrie to a woman we didn't like a lot.
Yeah, that's right.
Was that intense and difficult to do, that movie?
Well, yeah, it was, but I thrive on difficulty. You know, I like it. I like a challenge, and it was a challenge. It was interesting for me. The hardest aspect was peeling away all the things that I might have done with that character and keeping her very contained, very directed and focused.
You say you thrive on the challenges. You had a 10-year period in your life that was really very challenging.
Yeah, I did.
You made it through.
Yes. I think we all have difficult moments to go through in life. Not one of us ever escapes this go-round without some pain.
Do you pat Mary on the back enough?
I'm beginning to. I'm starting to. We were talking a little bit before the show about that, and you and I have the same tendencies, and that is to be too tough on ourselves.
Yeah, blame ourselves. In fact, Dick Van Dyke said that about you, that you're very tough on Mary.
Yeah, I have been. But now that I've got all that good, strong foundation, I can ease up a little and be nice to myself.
Everyone knows that you checked yourself into Betty Ford Hospital,
Yeah,
and I asked you before if you minded talking about it. Has it freed you, dealing with the problem?
Oh, absolutely. It has taught me a new way of dealing with life, a new way of relating to people. This business about being nice to myself comes from that experience. My problems with alcohol were, everybody is different. What is the definition of alcoholic? It is very, very tricky to pin down. But to me, it was a problem in that I found I could not stop the degree that I felt was damaging my body. I'm a diabetic, and I probably have a more sensitive reaction than a lot of people do. I never drank in the daytime. I never allowed it to affect my work, but it was affecting me, and I was still finding it difficult to stop. So being one who, as I said earlier, relies on other people and suggestions and advice when wisely put, I went to the Betty Ford Clinic, and I'm so glad I did.
And was Robert, your husband, supportive of all of this?
He sure was.
Why do you love him? You mentioned before that he's sensitive and sweet and really good looking and your dream, but there's got to be more to it than that.
Well, he loves me. I think that's the primary reason I love him back. He laughs at the things that make me laugh. We take very seriously the same things in our world. He is a fine doctor. He's a cardiologist, and I respect his dedication to that. I also respect the fact that he can look at a script and point out things to me that I probably wouldn't have discovered for another week or two.
Honestly, he has that sense, huh?
Yes, he sure does.
Very smart, then.
He is very smart and so embracing. So embracing.
Isn't that
so
nice
always
to hear?
there for me.
And you deserve that.
Thanks.
Do you know that?
Yeah, yeah.
You know
I do.
it now, huh?
I do.
So, Sweet Sue, now I got to ask you of how nerve-wracking it is to prepare for Broadway. Is it, you and Lynn float on the stage, but inside, as changes are being made, and I mean, nobody wants to flop on Broadway, so it is a big, it must be a tumultuous feeling.
But you know what? I have flopped on Broadway already. There was a play called Breakfast at Tiffany's, which played out of town in Boston. This was in, it's either 68 or 69. It went to New York and it closed in previews before it opened. So I've had that experience and I know that the world does not come to an end, you know? So I will survive it. It is not all that important.
And recently, you took a series off the air called Mary.
Yes, right.
Why?
Right. I didn't like the way it was shaping up. It was a situation in which I was surrounded by negative quipsters, and it was not character relationships, and that's my forte, and that's the kind of comedy that I enjoy doing, and I think that the audience wants to see. And as much as we had conversations with the writers and producers, they did not seem willing to make those accommodations. So I just decided that it was better not to keep trying with it and take it off the air.
And how different the characters in the Mary Tyler Moore Show. Amazing how many people you gave such wonderful careers to because of that show.
Well, amazing the amount of talent that made that show what it was.
And Betty White, you must be thrilled for her success. You're very close friends, aren't you?
Yes, we are. Yes, we are. She and Alan Ludden, when he was alive, were dear, dear friends. And
you miss him.
Oh, yes, I do. Very much. Very much.
She's the most supportive lady. You must be thrilled for her success in
I
Golden
sure am.
Girls.
I sure
Isn't
am.
that great? You mentioned diabetes, and we should talk about it because I've been involved in juvenile diabetes.
I know you have, and I thank you.
Oh, no, everybody should be.
Because I not only care about the cause and am its international chairperson, but I also am a diabetic, so I have selfish reasons for wanting a cure and wanting it soon.
And yet, juvenile diabetes can be so confusing. You got it as an adult. Was yours pregnancy-induced? Because that often happens.
Yes, it was. Yes, it was to be a miscarriage, and while I was in the hospital having a routine blood check, they found that my blood sugar level was 800. It's supposed to be somewhere between 70 and 120, so I was immediately type 1, they now call it, diabetic.
So you have insulin twice a day?
Yes, yes.
Hard to control diet and energy level and all of that when you're diabetic.
Yeah, it is, but it can be done. What can't always be done is control the side effects of diabetes. Now, I've been lucky. I may not always be lucky. And a lot of people I know who have been in excellent control are not lucky.
No, they lose their sight.
They lose their
all
sight,
kinds
they
of
lose
things.
limbs, they have a tremendous strain on the cardiovascular system, and as a result, lose years off their lives. So we need a cure, and we need your help. We need contributions to the JDF.
I agree. Talk for a moment about your relationship with Grant. You two are still very good friends, and yet you're not really so hands-on with MTM Productions now, are you?
No, nor was I ever. Grant Tinker and Arthur Price, who is now the president of MTM, started the company to facilitate the Mary Tyler Moore Show, and decided at some point to create a few more shows, and the company grew, and it is now very successful. But while I am chairman of the board and a major stockholder, I don't get involved creatively. There is no need for me to. It is beautifully run by Arthur Price and several other very talented people. I like acting. That's enough of a challenge for me.
That's what you want to do, huh? It's
Yeah.
wonderful, though, that you and Grant have remained good friends.
Oh, yes.
He's apparently a terrific man.
He sure is. He's the best.
Yeah, so are you.
Thanks.
I've looked forward to today, meeting you and
Thank
talking
you.
with you, Mary.
I've enjoyed it so much. You're a nice lady.
Well, you're a nice lady, too. And Sweet Sue, don't miss it. We are so fortunate to live in a town where we get a chance pre-Broadway to see people like Mary Tyler Moore and Lynn Redgrave. It is at the Wilbur, and it will be there through December 21st, and it's a show for everyone. It's really wonderful.
Thank
God
you
bless
so much.